Hey there, my wonderful, amazing, simply splendid viewers. This is XCG. Today, I'll be talking about what it's like to have an international working career. This video is from my purely personal experience. Unlike my other videos, there won't be a lot of quotes and there won't be a lot of research attached to it. Rather, this is a result of 17 years working in multiple countries outside my home country of Canada. I'm recording this on a Thursday, and this script is one I actually had no intention of writing this week. I had a plan, a very ambitious plan for this week. Unfortunately, life intervened, and last night my brain simply decided to pack it in. It had enough. To be completely honest, even today, my brain's fully not with me, and frankly, I suggest that it's made a partnership with my back, and the two of them are forming a union and a work to rule campaign. What I had planned for this week was part 2 of my series on Ivan Illich. I had written a script and started to record it, but I realized I was communicating some very badly formulated ideas in an incredibly baffling, confusing manner. So I put that script aside, I'll let it sit, and I'll be back to it shortly. Today, we're going to tackle a subject that should be easy for me to discuss. My experience as an international employee of a multinational company started way back in 1996 when I joined the company that would become my home for the next 25-ish years. Even when I joined, I already had in my mind a partially formed idea that I would like to work internationally. My motivations now are pretty hazy memories, but I think I can guess what they were. First of all, my brother worked for the same company, and a few years prior to me joining the company, he had moved to Europe. Secondly, I had visited Europe, and as a result of that experience, I'd gotten a bit of a travel bug. I really enjoyed it. 3, it seemed obvious to me that company employees who were selected for international transfer, which is a very expensive exercise for a company to undertake, must have skills and capabilities that are in demand, and international jobs must pay well and come with a lot of prestige. And I'll be blunt, I like money and I like prestige. 4, I had this very odd, persistent need to challenge myself. For instance, my script on Ivan Illich. And this need frequently crosses over into the realm of masochism. Of course, I'm not thinking to myself, wow, this sounds incredibly stressful, let's give this a go. But there is a portion of my psychology which is self-hating. And unfortunately, this part of myself tends to express itself in the following way. First, it'll say something along the lines of, you suck, you deserve to suffer. Another thing it'll say to me is, no, you're not as all of that, but you have to do something really outstanding to prove that you're better than you think you are. This is the perfect nightmare of self-destructive and ambitious. These warring parts of myself often trick me into biting off more than I can chew and compel me to keep chewing long after my jaw has started to hurt. Now, it wasn't like, 1996 I worked in a job, 1998 I was flying to work somewhere glamorous. It took me most of 8 years to achieve the goal I had set for myself, and it was very difficult. I had to take various positions at the company very, very seriously, even when those jobs didn't necessarily warrant that kind of attention. I had become quickly frustrated in my early period working as a salesperson, and as a result went back and did an MBA part-time at night on top of working. And I made it known loudly and frequently that what I really wanted was an international career. Fair comment on the preceding paragraph would be something along the lines of, Yeah, so a lot of people work really, really hard and they never achieve their goals, or that they have to work a lot longer to achieve something like an international career. And I would say, absolutely. And that's why I fully admit that there was another huge factor in working in my favor. Luck. I was lucky. I was lucky to have an older brother who worked for the company. Now, we're good WASPs, so I know that he never intervened directly in my career to help me get positions. But my name was already known. It had cachet. Frequently people would say to me, oh, I know your brother, I work with your brother, he's very impressive, or I really like him, and if you're like him, I'll really enjoy working with you. In addition, I think when I made mistakes, and I've made some big ones, rather than being fired, I was given the benefit of the doubt. I'm also lucky because I'm a tall, white man and a native English speaker. This gave me an immediate boost to my ability to sound credible, where a small woman of color with an accent might have to work much, much harder than I do. My privilege gave me the ability to make jokes easily. It allowed me to speak convincingly and with far less preparation than someone else might have to undertake. But I think ultimately the biggest portion of my luck came from being in the right place at the right time. I had reached a mid-management position by the early part of 2003. I reached this position while still appearing relatively young. As a result, when I put myself forward, I had credibility, as people would assume that I had to be talented. After all, I'd earned significant responsibility despite my youth. Obviously, it seems reasonable to assume that I must have talent. But trust me, I don't think those two things are actually all that closely correlated. Timing also worked because when I was ready to move, there was the right international position available. There was no one marketing me, cheerleading me as a potential international talent. But at this point in the company, they had recently set up an intranet site, which they posted jobs that they were having trouble filling. I applied for the position that I eventually got in Korea. And that's where the final bit of right place, right time fell into place. What I didn't know about the job in Korea, because I was a domestic employee working on a domestic role, was that it was actually a job that no experienced existing international employees wanted. And that was for a number of reasons. It was a business that for a number of years had done pretty badly. It had recently just been transferred from one part of the company to another division of the company, and that was a result of the fact that the problems were entrenched and they were very difficult to fix. So effectively, this was a hot potato. Anyone with a bit of experience would have known that going into a job where you've got a history, very bad trends in a business, and where you get a ton of scrutiny, you're perfectly positioned to fail. I was given the job. I wasn't given it because I was the best. I wasn't given it because I was ideal. And I wasn't given it because anyone particularly believed in me, but simply because I was there. I seemed capable enough. I had some name recognition, and I was the best option that they had. Most importantly, I was willing. Once you become an expatriate employee in a large company, it becomes much, much easier to stay as an international employee. By far the hardest step is that first international posting. Being an expatriate worker working internationally has huge benefits, but it also has some very big downsides. Some of these downsides are actually a bit hidden, surprising, and more painful than one might expect. If this is a path that you're interested in, a path that you want to follow, please be aware it's steep, it's treacherous, and it's got some big drops. So let's start with the benefits. The benefits of being an international employee are great. Well, first of all, better pay. So this is an assumption that if someone is willing to move, leave behind their home country, then they're a flexible company man. Now, I'm not using the word company man because all of these employees are men, but rather because I can't think of an ungendered term that has that same nuance. Your pay scale won't necessarily jump significantly, but it often does. In addition, most companies will protect you against currency variances and fluctuations, and they will often offset cost of living challenges. They will subsidize a number of usual costs associated with life, including support for your children and a spouse. Each of these benefits are salary-related benefits, so they bring in a stream of cash that you wouldn't get otherwise, and that stream often exceeds the costs that you actually incur, resulting in higher take-home pay. The second benefit is great perks. International workers, especially those working for large, well-funded companies, get specific perks to help offset some of the challenges and to encourage or reward your flexibility. So your moving costs are paid for. Plus, you might get moving allowances that help you to settle in, i.e. buy new things for your home. You may get paid vacations, and you will likely get paid trips home. You may get paid to join clubs to help you feel comfortable in this new home country. You will get your housing, transportation, children's schooling subsidized, if not fully paid for. Each of these perks, although justifiable to help an employee get comfortable, reduce the employee's cost significantly. So while your pay may not go up as much as you would hope, your costs will go way down. The third benefit is that you're going to get to live an international experience that is simply out of reach for the vast majority of people. Many people can travel, but there's a huge difference between being a tourist and living and working for an extended period in a country. Your interaction with the people and the culture of your new host country is extensive. It's prolonged and it's often very intense. You will come to understand those people in a way that most foreigners never will get the opportunity. You'll have visa, you'll have travel, and you'll have settling in support. Whereas any tourist or someone trying to emigrate to a new country has none of those benefits and has to figure it out on their own. You're going to work with local people who often are there to give you assistance whenever you need it. You're going to have access to neighboring countries of your host country just due to proximity. Oftentimes these are countries that you would never visit just because it costs too much, takes too much time. My fourth benefit is one that I think is particular to me and my personality, but I also think if international careers are something that appeal to you, you might share. And that's that moving to work in another country, even if it's the same job that you're used to doing, and even if it's the same company that you're used to working for, is like starting a brand new job. I always enjoyed this part of my international career. The reality is, no matter how exciting, how challenging, how interesting any job it is, after a few days or a few weeks, the problems start to become routine, the challenges start to become something that you're expecting, and it becomes eventually just your usual day-to-day slog. But the first year in any new posting is guaranteed to be particularly exciting and engaging. My fifth and last benefit is that you, as an employee, are now in a special category, and your coworkers will treat you differently and often better than other local employees. For instance, people you work with will defer to you because they assume you've been brought in because of your special skills. Or they'll be careful and especially polite because they expect you to be uncomfortable and sensitive in this unfamiliar environment. Either way, it gives you a big advantage over a local employee who just aren't given these accommodations. So all this sounds pretty appealing, doesn't it? But before you commit, let's start to talk about some of the more expected downsides. First, you have to leave behind a lot of things that are familiar. Your extended family, your friends, possibly your language. If you've grown up in a country, you know how it works. You know what to do, where to go if you need help. It's easy to find foods that you like, and it's easy to access entertainment that you understand. It's easy to find enjoyable recreation. In a new country, everything can be very, very strange, and especially in the early stages, extremely threatening. I think this can be much worse depending on the country you've come from versus the country that you're going to. Even if you're a very adventurous person and you've had, you're also an adventurous tourist, you've had some international experience, you are going to be put in some situations that are uncomfortable. For instance, imagine being sick and having to go to a hospital. But you walk into this hospital and you don't know how things work. You don't know the quality of care. It may be dirty and chaotic. It may be loud and disorganized. It may require you to be very assertive to be heard. That can be quite challenging even if you're feeling good, but add on top of that being sick and it's almost traumatic. The second thing to be aware of, you will never belong. People are going to be nice to you. My experience almost everywhere that I've been is that people went out of their way to be polite to me, out of their way to make me feel comfortable, and out of their way to give me a good experience of their country. They want you to like their country and to have good experiences there. But at the end of the day, you're always going to be the foreigner. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and they're probably not going to get hostile if you do something wrong. But they're also often going to assume that you are going to do something wrong, and they'll correct you for things that you're already well aware of, and maybe repeatedly. You get pandered to. Depending on the culture, you may even get grabbed by the arm and dragged on the assumption that you're lost, or that you're ignorant, or that you're somewhere where you don't belong. You can learn the language. You can learn a great deal about the culture. You can develop really, really great friendships, but you'll always be someone who is considered the other. Sometimes your experience is going to be absolutely charming, but too often your experience is going to be one of alienation, of being different, of standing out, and feeling misplaced. Third, you may experience feelings of guilt and shame. Your family at home may tell you that they miss you and wish that you'd never left. They may become sick and you feel incredibly bad about not being able to be with them when they need you. It becomes harder to reach out and maintain friendships. You stop being a key important presence in the lives of your family and your friends. There are some things about your home country that you just can't replace in a year or in 2 or in 5. Even if you, despite the distance, manage to maintain your relationships, when you get that week or that 2 or that 3 weeks at home, you simply won't have the time you want with the people who are most important to you. 4, there are going to be new and difficult pressures on your immediate family and your significant other. If you move to a new country accompanied by a spouse and children, you immediately gain an advantage, at least over other international workers who are traveling without their family, because you have a warm and comforting home to return to in the evening. But expat life can erode this security and peace. You, the employee, can go to work and have extended interactions with locals who are paid to put up with your ignorance. Your spouse doesn't have that advantage. If you're uncomfortable figuring out how things work, imagine how your spouse experiences it alone in an unfamiliar city. I think this fact, more than any other, leads to the failure of first international assignments. Spouses simply saying, yeah, I tried it, I don't like it, I'm leaving, are you coming with me or not? Likewise, of course, your children miss home, they miss their grandparents, and they miss their friends. They have to put up with new and strange surroundings, schools, and people. Unless they are particularly confident, they will naturally struggle, and they will need more support from you and your spouse. And this is stressful. Finally, you may end up spending more time with your accompanying family than you ever did when you're at home. But at the same time, you may be separated for longer stretches than you ever have in the past. In your home country, you both had friends in common and maybe your own individual group of friends. Now, you and your spouse, you and your children have to depend on each other in new and unfamiliar ways in order to maintain that sense of social connection. This is especially true in the first year. This can lead to conflicts that you've never faced. Your spouse and children may want to go home, back to your home country for extended periods. And as a result of work commitments, you can't join them. Or you may move immediately in order to start in your new role, and your family will trail you by a period of up to months as a result of waiting for a school term to end or other commitments that keeps them from being able to leave. These new pressures on the family, as well as these extended times apart, raises a number of issues of loneliness and feelings of rejection. It can significantly increase the tendencies for alcohol abuse and for infidelity. Statistics and my own non-quantifiable experiences with the expat community support this. Perhaps even more compellingly, I have almost 15 years of sobriety. I got sober in my second year in Korea. And I've paid at least a few couples therapy bills to indicate that I do have an expertise in this area. So I think that covers the obvious downsides, or the more obvious logical downsides. But unfortunately, there is one more. And my last downside is one that I didn't expect, and one that took me years and multiple countries before I could really figure out what was going on. So I've complained a lot on this channel about how modern work is unpleasant, because the workplace seems to be constantly worming its way more and more into our private lives, mostly supported by technology, but also driven by changes in corporate culture and the expectations that are put on workers. So, because of these demands, we're often giving up tremendous amounts of our life to our work and not getting much in terms of fulfillment in return. What I have to add is an additional warning for an international employee. Corporate expat life doesn't seep into your private life. It doesn't limit your freedom. It can actually displace all of it. In an ordinary job, you spend far too much time working, traveling, answering your phone, thinking about work, worrying about work. In an international job, you hand over the rest of your time. Your home is provided by your company. They may own it, or they may pay the rent, but at the end of the day, it isn't yours. Once behind the walls of this home, there is always the awareness that whatever happens may potentially come to the attention of your company. Repairs, cleaning, redecorating when you leave. Your company's involved. Have you had a conflict with your landlord? Your company will be involved. You want to go out for, let's say, forget this company house, let's go out for a drive. You're driving a car that the company has given you, and most likely a car that you didn't get to choose. You burn fuel, petrol, gas through that car, charge it on your company card. The mileage, the maintenance, and all the other costs associated with that car are duly recorded, monitored, and discussed somewhere around a company meeting table. In most international jobs, you're going to have a lot of say over your children's schooling. But the bills for that schooling are also passing through an HR office, and they are subject to scrutiny and approval. Do your children need special support at school or due to a health-related issue? Yep, discussed, aligned, approved, and recorded. Maybe you want to take a vacation so you can really get away from it. Feel free for a little while. Is it a rest and relaxation trip? Then before you even plan anything, you got to fill out a form, you have to discuss it, you have to have it approved, and you have to have it filed. Most likely your company then will also be involved in the planning of the trip and booking of the tickets and all the related details that go with traveling. How about a death in the family? An incredibly painful and very personal experience. But it's far less personal if you're an expatriate worker. Before even an hour has passed, you have to get approval to leave work, to fly home, to pay for your related expenses. Before an hour has passed, most of your local office knows about your loss and knows about your plans. Suppose something really bad happens, like a separation from your spouse. It becomes a situation where the company's asset, you, your salary and benefits, and your family become a key topic of debate around water coolers. You have to share your detail with someone in an administration or management position. They need to be involved because these changes are going to become company business. There are costs involved in repatriating a spouse and family. There's benefits to cut or change. There are schools and landlords to negotiate with. You may be responsible for doing it yourself, but only after you've done your aligning and approving. Everything that you do will need to be checked and cleared against policy. Your marital strife is your company's business. Now, if you work for a good company like the one I did, in general, most people are very compassionate in dealing with expatriate employees and very professional. Nonetheless, you have transcended the usual employee-employer relationship. You've become a carefully managed, specifically named, and scrutinized asset. As a result, work suddenly takes on an importance that it's never had before. I mean, it was always important. But now, not an hour of your life goes by without your job and your company being front and center in your thoughts. You don't ever get to turn off, to completely unplug. Not really. If things are going well, you work well with your boss, then it can be quite okay. And the benefits that come along with this international career can more than compensate for the downsides. But when things start to go the other way, when business goes bad, or when you realize that your value to your company has begun to drop, then it really starts to hurt. To lose your job in these conditions is a threat unlike any other. You won't only lose your income, you'll lose the life you're living, and so will your family. Your current home? Gone. The school your children enjoy? Gone. Your car? Gone. The friendships you've made here in this country? Gone. The country that you've lived in, possibly for years? Gone. You're repatriated. Do you still have a house in your home country? Often not. Have you been living somewhere else for a decade or more? Often, many things have changed. Your parents may have died. Or, even worse, as they've aged, Alzheimer's has stolen their memories of you. Your friends, your clubs, your hobbies, they're gone or they're changed. Then you need to find accommodation, you need to find transportation, you need to find schooling for your children, and some source of income in a country where you may be without current business contacts. If your country has a good social safety net, well then fantastic. Hopefully you'll be in a good position. But you haven't paid into that social safety net in many years. Do you still qualify? What about your family? My children have never gone to a Canadian school. They've never ridden on a public bus. They've never driven themselves on a Canadian road. They've never worked at a Canadian part-time job. They have no Canadian friends. As a parent, how do you feel when the cost of losing your job is to tear their lives apart? My wife and I find small talk at Canadian, hair shops or movie theaters or coffee shops extremely difficult now versus when we used to live in Canada. The issue is that after 17 years and living in so many different places, we just don't have that much in common with ordinary people in Canada anymore. Obviously, we're adults. We grew up here. We will quickly adapt back. But imagine how it's going to feel for a teenager who has never lived there. But ultimately, even if your job is going well, you know what the policy says. This location, this country is temporary, and the company will ask you to move again. Where? There is probably no guarantee. Many companies have explicit contracts that say, once you have moved to an international role, you must continue to move whenever the company requests or leave. So will you be moving your children to Africa or to Asia or to the US? Not up to you. Not the timing and not the location, and often regardless of your particular family circumstances. Is your family unhappy as a result? Shame. Good luck explaining it to them. Now, I'm very lucky. Again, a little bit of a theme in this video. My wife and my children are very, very flexible. They're robust people, and they understand the costs of the life that we're living. So they've been extremely supportive. But I'm not going to go so far to say that it's the best life we could have lived. So, what's the bottom line? Would I recommend an international career to someone? Maybe. Don't know. I think what I would tell them is what my experience is, and let them make up their own mind. Do I think it was worth it for me? I don't know. I've only got the one life. I haven't lived another one that I can compare it to. Do I regret it? No, absolutely not. Both myself and my family have had incredible opportunities, incredible adventures, incredible experiences that there would have been no way to have without having made the sacrifices that we have made. But I also do not regret my decision to leave. I mean, theoretically, sometime in the future, there may be a moment where it crosses my mind that I kind of miss it. But I'm also really confident that I never want to go back. So, thanks to all of you for watching this video all the way through. If you enjoyed it and want more capitalism criticism and anti-work or work-skeptical videos, then please remember to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. This is XCG wishing all of you the greatest possible speed on your road to freedom.